On May 27, 2025, in the city of Coronel, Oviedo, the administrative center of the Caguazú department, 17-year-old Maria Fernanda Benitez Martinez was reported missing. That morning, she left her home and then stopped responding to messages or calls. Her family contacted emergency services the same day, prompting immediate search efforts. Local law enforcement, prosecutors, and community volunteers joined forces to begin a coordinated investigation. The initial phase focused on mapping out Maria Fernanda's possible routes and interviewing those close to her. Attention quickly turned to her immediate circle, particularly a peer named Bernardo, with whom she had been in a relationship. Investigators confirmed that he was the last known person to communicate with her before she disappeared. Further inquiries revealed that Maria Fernanda was expecting a child. This development was later confirmed by international organizations including UNICEF and UNFPA. Investigators considered this a significant factor that might have influenced the circumstances surrounding her disappearance. In the first hours after the report, police focused on collecting digital evidence, analyzing her call logs, text messages, and recent phone activity to establish a timeline. Authorities also began reviewing surveillance footage from cameras in her neighborhood, near schools, and at local businesses. These recordings were critical in determining whether she had indeed met with Bernardo on the day she went missing. Eyewitness accounts helped refine the timeline of her movements. Several individuals reported seeing her near the Villa del Maestro neighborhood, where Bernardo lived. These testimonies supported the theory that she may have been headed to see him. Prosecutors later confirmed that the primary focus of the investigation was on Bernardo and his family. Throughout the legal proceedings, Prosecutor Fermín Segovia emphasized that the investigation was proceeding strictly within the bounds of the law. Meanwhile, the case began to draw public attention. Local residents expressed concern, social media was flooded with posts about Maria Fernanda, and the first community gatherings were organized to support her family. What began as a local case soon gained national coverage. By the end of May, authorities had determined that Bernardo was a central figure in the investigation. Additional digital devices were seized for forensic review of messages and call history. Investigators underscored the urgency of the situation, noting that every moment mattered, given Maria Fernanda's vulnerable status. Gradually, the inquiry narrowed in on a possible scenario in which her disappearance was directly connected to her relationship with Bernardo and the implications of her pregnancy. On the evening of May 31st, 2025, in the Villa del Maestro area of Coronel Oviedo, the body of Maria Fernanda was discovered. The location was a shallow pit behind a residential zone, resembling an abandoned dumping area. Responding investigative teams documented partially burned remains covered with branches and leaves. The ground around the site showed signs of fire, and nearby were remnants of vegetation used to ignite it. A forensic examination carried out shortly after the recovery indicated the presence of smoke inhalation, suggesting Maria Fernanda lost her life as a result of fire and its byproducts. At the same time, some findings pointed to the possibility that she may have been unconscious before the blaze started. This scenario became central to the reconstruction of events. Specialists also confirmed her pregnancy, which investigators viewed as a key factor in assessing motives and the potential involvement of suspects. The scene was immediately secured for a detailed inspection. Every piece of evidence was photographed and cataloged. Soil, ash, and fabric samples were collected. Crime scene experts noted signs that the body had been moved and attempts had been made to conceal the act. The area appeared to have been deliberately chosen. It was located near Bernardo's family home, making it accessible for quick actions and narrowing the circle of possible participants. At the same time, authorities were reconstructing Maria Fernanda's movements in the final hours of her life. Witness statements indicated she had been seen near the location where her remains were found. This information aligned with the theory linking her disappearance to people in Bernardo's immediate circle. Preliminary autopsy results ruled out an accident. The injuries and the condition of the site pointed to intentional actions. Investigators documented the use of fire as an attempt to destroy evidence. Official reports were filed, photographs taken, and further chemical tests were ordered to identify the substances used. The discovery of Maria Fernanda's body marked a turning point in the investigation. What began as a missing person case had now shifted toward a criminal investigation involving intentional harm under aggravating circumstances. This development sparked a strong public response. Vigils were held in the city. Residents demanded transparency and accountability, and the case quickly gained nationwide attention. Prosecutors formally confirmed that the case now carried the status of a criminal investigation into intentional loss of life of a vulnerable individual. Based on new evidence, investigators began piecing together a possible sequence of events: an assault, loss of consciousness, movement to the pit, and the subsequent fire. These hypotheses became the foundation for analyzing the actions of key figures, including Bernardo and people in his environment. The discovery of Maria Fernanda's body not only confirmed her death, but also defined the direction of all subsequent investigative steps. After the remains of Maria Fernanda were found, investigators began a thorough examination of the area. Villa del Maestro was a semi-abandoned zone with uneven terrain, featuring a recessed plot that had been used as a dumping site. That's where her body was discovered. Police immediately secured the scene to prevent any interference. For several days, forensic specialists worked at the site, documenting every detail. One of the first significant findings was a mobile phone, partially damaged by fire. Despite signs of burning, experts confirmed that some data might still be recoverable. The device became a critical piece of evidence, as it could provide access to the victim's messages and call history. Additionally, within the secured perimeter, investigators found fragments of clothing that had been exposed to intense heat. These were sent for chemical analysis to detect traces of accelerants or other substances. Particular focus was placed on soil and ash residues. Experts noted markings that suggested the movement of a heavy object. The shape and depth of the pit indicated that the body had been placed there intentionally and that fire had been used in an attempt to eliminate evidence. Investigators also examined fingerprints on nearby metal and plastic objects. Every item was carefully photographed and collected for comparison with materials from the homes of potential suspects. As the investigation progressed, authorities also secured footage from nearby surveillance cameras. Prosecutors obtained recordings from two sources, one from a relative of Bernardo and another from a local pharmacy, where, according to investigators, certain medications might have been purchased. These devices were collected with a court order and submitted for forensic analysis. The goal was to map out the movements of individuals involved on the day Maria Fernanda went missing. Simultaneously, investigators analyzed shoe prints discovered near the burn site. The size and tread matched those typically worn by teenagers. This evidence further supported the working theory that the crime was connected to Bernardo's immediate circle. Combined with other findings, it strengthened the prosecution's position regarding his possible involvement. Collected materials were sent to specialized labs for analysis: the phone to digital forensics, clothing to a chemical biological unit, and soil samples to a geological lab. Each result would be cross-referenced with the timeline of Maria Fernanda's disappearance and eyewitness testimony. Altogether, the work at the scene provided a comprehensive body of physical evidence. The facts pointed to a premeditated act aimed at covering tracks. However, the preserved items, the mobile phone, clothing, and surveillance footage gave investigators enough data to push the case forward and begin piecing together the specific events that led to Maria Fernanda's tragic end. After collecting physical evidence from the scene, prosecutors began piecing together a timeline and logical structure of the events. Based on forensic findings and witness testimony, the primary suspect remained 17-year-old Bernardo. Investigators proposed that he orchestrated the actions that ultimately led to Maria Fernanda's death. Suspicion grew as the timeline of her disappearance aligned with accounts placing him near the site where her remains were found. As the investigation expanded, more individuals were drawn into the case. By June 2025, authorities had identified Michela Chiara Jassi Rolon Melgarejo as someone suspected of inciting or aiding in the events leading to the tragedy. Prosecutors also revealed potential involvement by Franco Antonio Acosta Cespedes, a pharmacist believed to have supplied medication intended to end a pregnancy. He was being investigated for distributing regulated substances that may have played a role in the events under review. Close relatives of Bernardo were also brought under scrutiny. The father of a girl linked to Bernardo's family faced allegations of concealing a motorcycle believed to have been used to transport Maria Fernanda. Bernardo's own parents were named in connection with obstructing the investigation and providing misleading information. As the inquiry progressed, what initially appeared to be the act of a single person evolved into a broader scheme involving individuals with varying degrees of involvement, from direct participation to concealment and support. Court documents outline differences in the legal status of those involved. While some individuals faced pretrial detention, others were placed under house arrest or restricted from leaving the area. Charges were clarified during court proceedings, which accounted for discrepancies in the number of officially named parties over time. Still, Bernardo remained at the center of the investigation throughout the process. Investigators focused closely on possible motives. Among the factors considered were fear of public exposure regarding the pregnancy, reluctance to accept responsibility, and external pressures from those around him. These elements were evaluated alongside physical evidence and forensic conclusions. Authorities also explored the theory that the events were premeditated, involving both the relocation of Maria Fernanda and an attempt to destroy evidence through the use of fire. The process of identifying all individuals involved included collecting additional data. New digital devices were seized, vehicle routes were reconstructed, and eyewitness accounts were reassessed. By late June, investigators had developed a broad understanding of the relationships between the suspects. The role of each person was evaluated independently, but the overall picture suggested that Maria Fernanda's death was not a random or isolated event, but the result of coordinated actions involving multiple individuals. By midsummer 2025, the investigation had established a working theory that included not only Bernardo as the main actor, but also his close circle, individuals who provided support, cover, or access to resources. This theory became the foundation for upcoming legal proceedings and shaped the course of the case going forward. In early June 2025, the investigation entered a more intensive phase. Based on the evidence gathered, prosecutors authorized the detention of Bernardo's immediate family members. On June 7th, his parents were taken into custody. They were accused of obstructing the investigation and providing misleading information. The official decision regarding their detention was announced by prosecutors Gloria Rojas and Fermin Segovia. The court upheld the prosecution's request, citing concerns over potential witness intimidation and possible tampering with evidence. Within 24 hours, Bernardo's parents were transferred to a pre-trial detention facility. The court hearing drew considerable attention from local media and residents of Coronel Oviedo. They remained in custody pending further judicial decisions. Prosecutors based their request on witness statements and investigative data, indicating that Bernardo's parents had knowledge of his actions and had taken steps to minimize the consequences. Simultaneously, other individuals connected to the case were being questioned. The father of Bernardo's friend was being investigated for allegedly concealing the motorcycle used to transport Maria Fernanda. He was placed under travel restrictions to ensure compliance with the legal process. Around the same time, the court also reviewed measures for Franco Antonio Acosta Cespedes, the pharmacist accused of supplying medication. Given the nature of the allegations, he was placed under house arrest. The arrest of Bernardo's family members sparked significant public discussion. For many in the community, it became clear that this case extended beyond a conflict between two teenagers. Investigators were uncovering a broader network of involvement that included adults who may have provided cover or assistance. National media picked up the story, and additional resources were allocated to ensure a fair and thorough investigation. Meanwhile, defense attorneys filed motions to change the terms of detention for some of those involved. They argued that Bernardo's parents had no direct role in the crime. However, prosecutors maintained that their actions following Maria Fernanda's disappearance interfered with the pursuit of truth. The court sided with the prosecution, affirming the need for strict measures. Another issue that arose during this period was the defense team's attempt to replace prosecutor Fermin Segovia, citing alleged bias. Higher authorities reviewed the request and denied it, confirming Segovia's authority to continue leading the case. This episode highlighted the high level of procedural tension surrounding the case, with both sides utilizing all available legal tools. By mid-June, the situation had stabilized. The individuals involved were under supervision, legal measures were in place, and investigators were focused on analyzing seized materials and preparing for forensic examinations. The arrests of Bernardo's parents and other participants marked a turning point in the investigation, reducing the risk of interference and strengthening the prosecution's case in court. The next phase of the investigation focused on analyzing digital evidence. Authorities had recovered a phone found near the burn site. Despite visible damage, forensic experts were able to retrieve portions of its data and messages. The recovered files included Maria Fernanda's recent conversations, particularly those with Bernardo. These exchanges confirmed that they had met and had several discussions shortly before her disappearance. Simultaneously, investigators reviewed footage from surveillance cameras. Judge Gustavo Ovalar authorized access to 2 video sources, one taken from a relative's home connected to Bernardo, and another from a local pharmacy tied to the alleged purchase of medication. Experts began extracting video files, reviewing timestamps to trace the movement of the individuals involved and determine the sequence of events. In the process, footage was uncovered showing Maria Fernanda in the presence of the suspected perpetrator. These images supported the theory that she was with Bernardo on the day she went missing. Investigators matched the timestamps from the videos with cellular data, allowing them to build a precise timeline. This approach made it possible to establish when and where communication with her ceased. The phone data played a vital role in evaluating potential alibis. Contacts recorded on the device showed communication with a small, familiar circle of people, which ruled out the possibility of a random encounter. Experts also used geolocation tracking to confirm that the individuals involved were in the vicinity where her body was later found. The pharmacy surveillance footage became crucial in assessing the actions of Franco Antonio Acosta Cespedes. Investigators aimed to determine whether any medication linked to the pregnancy episode had been purchased there. If footage confirmed such a transaction, it would directly support claims of involvement. All video files were submitted for expert review, with advanced image recovery tools used as needed. Working with digital evidence required time and meticulous procedures. The team created backup images of all files to ensure data integrity and avoid accusations of tampering. Prosecutors regularly updated the public on these developments, emphasizing the importance of these materials in reconstructing the full picture. By September 2025, investigators had restored significant amounts of digital data from phones, along with video footage that confirmed Maria Fernanda's contact with Bernardo on the day she went missing. These pieces of evidence strengthened the prosecution's position by connecting physical findings with digital records, helping establish a consistent and comprehensive version of the events. Forensic medical examinations confirmed that Maria Fernanda was expecting a child at the time of her death. This fact was established through official reports and recognized as a key element of the case. Investigators ordered a DNA test to determine the paternity of the unborn child. Samples were collected from the alleged father, Bernardo. The results would either confirm or refute a biological link, which was crucial for understanding potential motives and the nature of the relationship between them. At the same time, prosecutors launched an inquiry into the possibility that medication had been used to induce a miscarriage. Franco Antonio Acosta Cespedes, who worked in the pharmaceutical field, came under scrutiny. He was suspected of providing substances that could have been used for that purpose. During searches, authorities seized documents, surveillance footage, and remaining samples of medication. Considering the specific nature of the charges, the court placed him under house arrest. The assigned lab work included chemical and toxicology testing of tissue and blood samples. Experts were looking for traces of substances that could trigger pregnancy complications or loss. These procedures were conducted alongside the genetic testing, with each step carefully documented and submitted to the prosecution for inclusion in the case file. DNA analysis played a central role. Comparing genetic material from the unborn child with Bernardo's samples was expected to confirm his biological responsibility. A confirmed match would serve as direct evidence and a potential motive behind subsequent actions. The DNA test results were considered a critical piece in the prosecution's case. Medical records also offered insight into Maria Fernanda's physical condition prior to her death. Forensic doctors documented the stage of pregnancy, estimating the timeline. This confirmed that her condition would have been known to those closest to her. Accordingly, the theory that someone may have wanted to avoid the consequences of that pregnancy gained further support. Documents recovered from the pharmacy were cross-referenced with witness statements. Investigators analyzed receipts and surveillance data to identify the timing of any purchases and align them with the timeline of Maria Fernanda's disappearance. This process helped establish a logical connection between the supply of medication and the events that unfolded in late May. All these materials reinforced the prosecution's case. The presence of a pregnancy, a suspected attempt to terminate it, and the involvement of third parties in facilitating access to medication created a detailed evidentiary framework. Investigators emphasized that these factors likely played a significant role in the events that led to the tragic outcome. The discovery of Maria Fernanda's body and the subsequent arrests sparked a widespread reaction in Coronel Oviedo and across the country. In early June, large-scale marches were held, organized by neighbors, classmates, and family members. Residents called for a transparent investigation and swift accountability. Hundreds of people took part in the demonstrations, many holding signs with Maria Fernanda's photo. The strong community support became a key factor in putting pressure on public institutions. The Ministry of Education responded by deploying psychologists to the school where Maria Fernanda had studied. Mental health professionals provided support to her classmates and teachers who were deeply affected by the tragedy. These efforts showed that the incident was being treated not just as a legal case, but as a broader social issue with a significant impact on young people. International organizations also issued formal statements. UNICEF and UNFPA confirmed the victim's pregnancy and stressed the need to strengthen protections for teenagers. Their messages highlighted the systemic challenges related to lack of timely support and effective prevention mechanisms. As a result, the case gained international relevance. On the political level, the case prompted discussion of new legislative initiatives. Maria Fernanda's parents visited Parliament, where they voiced support for the creation of an emergency alert system for missing minors. The proposal, dubbed the Mayface system, was modeled after rapid response frameworks used in other countries. Lawmakers from multiple parties agreed to fast-track the proposal, signaling a shared commitment to the issue. Media outlets closely followed developments in the investigation and public response. News reports covered every march, every statement from civic organizations, and each update from legislative sessions. Journalists emphasized that public attention must remain focused until the legal process is completed. This sustained coverage created additional oversight over the actions of prosecutors and law enforcement. In Coronel Oviedo, memorials and remembrance sites began to appear. Residents placed flowers, candles, and photos as expressions of solidarity with Maria Fernanda's family. These gestures underscored the magnitude of the tragedy and symbolized a collective demand for justice. For many in the community, the case became a call to strengthen protections for women and young people. The social response helped reinforce trust in the official investigation. Prosecutors publicly confirmed that the inquiry was being conducted in full accordance with legal procedures. At the same time, they acknowledged that public involvement played a critical role in preventing any attempt to minimize or obscure key facts. This alignment between public pressure and institutional response elevated the case to a matter of national concern and set the stage for broader discussions about reform. By early September 2025, the investigation had moved into the phase of preparing for trial. Prosecutors announced plans to conduct a detailed reconstruction of the events. This effort aimed to combine physical evidence, expert reports, and video footage to recreate the timeline from the moment Maria Fernanda went missing to the discovery of her remains. Judge Gustavo Ovelar approved the prosecution's request to extract data from previously seized digital devices, including 2 DVRs. The contents were expected to complement the phone records already recovered by forensic specialists. Prosecutors argued that visual evidence would help resolve inconsistencies in witness statements and establish an objective timeline. The reconstruction was initially scheduled for September, but faced multiple delays. These were attributed to organizational issues, the need to finalize lab tests, and ongoing legal disputes between the parties. Defense attorneys challenged the authority of lead prosecutor Fermín Segovia, but their motions were denied by supervisory bodies. As a result, Segovia retained his leadership role in the case. During court sessions, the status of certain individuals was reviewed. Franco Antonio Acosta Céspedes remained under house arrest. Bernardo's parents continued to be held in custody due to concerns they might influence witnesses. Other individuals faced travel restrictions and were required to appear when summoned. Bernardo, the primary figure in the investigation, was being held under juvenile detention conditions, but with heightened oversight. One of the most critical elements of the investigation remained the DNA test results. The genetic analysis was expected to confirm paternity and clarify the connection between Bernardo and Maria Fernanda's pregnancy. These findings would directly impact the classification of the charges and help finalize the case. At the same time, investigators continued to analyze surveillance footage capturing the movements of key individuals on the day she disappeared. From late May through September, the investigation progressed through several phases: the search effort, discovery of the body, evidence collection, arrest of family members, seizure of digital devices, and the ordering of forensic tests. Each phase was documented and publicly reported by the prosecution. By fall 2025, there had been no final court rulings yet. The case remained in the pre-trial stage, and authorities confirmed that it would proceed to court. As of the September update, a full chronology had taken shape. Disappearance on May 27th, discovery of the body on May 31st, initial searches on June 5th, arrests on June 7th to 8th, identification of additional suspects by the end of the month, court orders issued on September 4, and the pending reconstruction and final expert reviews. The investigation had shown consistent development, driven by both internal procedures and continued public scrutiny. The final phase focused on solidifying the evidence base for formal legal proceedings.